Hello everyone, today I'll continue telling you the story of the single mother. I hope you enjoy the video. After the days when Tan stopped appearing as often as before, Han's life suddenly felt strangely empty. Each morning as the sun rose behind the coffee hills, Han still carefully made herself a cup of ginger tea out of habit. But every time she brought it to her lips, she would suddenly remember Tana's tall, slim figure, the way he meticulously cooked ginger for her, then frowned in worry that it might be too spicy. She would smile to herself, but her smile quickly faded into silence. Every night, lying next to little Tom, the stillness made her thoughts scatter. She missed Tana's slow footsteps on the porch, his warm voice reminding her to take care of herself, and even the gentle gaze he always tried to hide whenever he looked at her. She knew he was busy taking care of things in the upper village, but a small sense of loss lingered. When he was here, everything seemed lighter, from picking vegetables in the morning to enduring the sudden pain in her ankle. Now everything had gone back to its original form, loneliness. Sometimes when she passed the slope where Tan once carried her on his back, she stopped for a long time. The memories of that day returned, the warmth of his back, his hurried breaths under the harsh sunlight, and the sense of safety she had never found in anyone else. One day, as little Tom played on the porch, he suddenly asked, "Mom, when will Uncle Tan come back?" Han froze, smiled, and patted his head. "Probably when he finishes his work." But that answer made her heart tighten. She didn't know when he would return, or if he would return at all. At night, when the moonlight slipped through the gaps in the door, Han lay quietly with her hand over her chest, where longing seemed to grow with every breath. She didn't know when Tana's presence had become such a familiar part of her and her child's life. And once that familiar piece suddenly disappeared, the emptiness was not easily filled. Up in the village, Tan also couldn't stop thinking about Han. At first, he only planned to stay a few days to care for his grandmother, but her condition became more complicated, so he had to stay longer than expected. Every night when he prepared her bed, he would unconsciously think about Han, how she hunched over picking vegetables in her garden, her soft voice comforting little Tom, or her gentle smile under the wooden porch. Those memories wove into every part of his day, making his heart feel as though it was still tied to the village below. Fortunately, after more than a week of care, his grandmother's health improved significantly. She no longer had trouble breathing, and she even joked, "Go back now, someone must be waiting for you." Tana's ears turned red. He only smiled awkwardly, but warmth bloomed in his chest. That night, while drying coffee beans outside, he looked up at the starry sky and whispered, "Soon, I'll go back." The next day, while cleaning his grandmother's room, he noticed that the Women's Day celebration was coming soon. His heart stirred. He thought of Han, strong but wounded, raising her child alone while trying to hold on in this harsh life. The more he thought, the more he wanted to do something meaningful for her. An idea blossomed. A bouquet of bright yellow wild daisies from the hillside? A basket of ripe red coffee cherries he picked himself? Or simply showing up at her door on a cool afternoon with a bag of forest vegetables and his familiar smile? He wanted that special day, the first one he ever prepared for her, to become a beautiful memory. He carefully wrote a few notes in an old notebook. Each stroke was firm, sincere. Just imagining Han's smile brought him peace. In the afternoon, when his grandmother took a nap, Tan quietly gathered the dried coffee beans and prepared a few things. "If the weather is good," he smiled, "I'll go tomorrow." In his heart, he held one promise. Han deserved a beautiful day, and he hoped he would be the one to bring that day to her. The next morning, even before the sunlight could pierce through the mist, Tan rose early. He put on his jacket and walked toward the hillside behind the house. There, a patch of golden wild daisies bloomed brightly in the late autumn wind. He remembered very clearly the time Han sat on the porch and softly said that her favorite flower was this one, simple yet resilient. He didn't say anything that day, but he quietly remembered. Stepping through the mist, he bent down to pick each flower still covered in dew. He arranged them in a clean cloth, tying it with a simple string. Just that alone made his eyes gleam with joy. Han will like this, he thought. Back home, Tan opened his grandmother's old chest. Inside was a bracelet made of coffee beans, each round and polished, carrying the scent of the sun. His grandmother said his grandfather had given it to her during the harvest festival. It was a symbol of their simple but enduring love among the mountains. She looked at him and smiled. If you have someone in your heart, let this carry my blessing. Tan froze, his heart skipping a beat. I just want to thank her. No need to explain, she waved. Your eyes say enough. Blushing, he gently placed the bracelet into a cloth bag. To him it wasn't just a gift. It was a promise, gratitude, and hope. At noon, Tan packed the flowers, bracelet, fragrant coffee, and supplements his grandmother sent for Han and her child. He arranged everything neatly in a sturdy bamboo basket, then placed it on his motorbike. Standing in front of the yard, he looked at the narrow road winding through the coffee hills. The wind rustled the leaves as if cheering him onward. He gripped the handlebars, his heart full of excitement and nervousness. What is Han doing now? Will she be happy if she sees me? He wasn't sure how she would react, but one thing he knew for certain. He wanted to give her these gifts himself, to the woman he had quietly placed in his heart. Tan set off. The road was long, but his heart was overflowing with hope. The road back to the lower village was familiar, yet today it felt different to Tan. With every meter he traveled, his heart beat faster as he imagined the look on Han's face when she saw him return unexpectedly. However, when he arrived at the village, instead of heading straight to her house, he stopped by the small market near the stream. He wanted to prepare a few more small gifts, simple things but filled with sincerity. At the market, there was a modest flower stall. The wild daisies he brought were still fresh, but Tan wanted to pick another bouquet, this time white lilies. Lilies had a gentle scent, symbolizing purity and gratitude. He recalled Han's smile, soft yet slightly shy. He wanted to give her something delicate, something that said her smile alone was enough. He carefully selected the lilies, choosing buds and blossoms, then asked the vendor to wrap them in plain brown paper. After that, he visited a small handicraft stall. Knitted scarves hung neatly along the porch. His hand paused on a beige-colored one, the yarn soft as the early morning breeze. He gently touched the embroidered edge and smiled. This quiet, gentle color would surely suit Han. He imagined her wearing the scarf on chilly mornings, watering the plants in the yard, her hair tied back, smiling softly. The thought warmed him. When he was done shopping, Tan returned to the empty house where he used to stay. The room was simple, just a wooden table, a few old belongings, and a window looking out onto a coffee garden. He placed the bamboo basket on the table, then arranged the gifts he had prepared. The bouquet of yellow wild daisies, the bouquet of white lilies, the coffee bean bracelet from his grandmother, the soft knitted scarf. Each item carried a piece of his heart. Tan stood in silence looking at them. A breeze slipped through the window, carrying the scent of ripe coffee cherries. He inhaled deeply, whispering to himself, "I hope she likes them." In the afternoon, the sun dyed the mountain peaks orange. Tan put on his jacket, picked up the basket and stepped outside. No message, no warning. He wanted this to be a beautiful surprise. The holiday was near, and he hoped to begin it with something quiet yet sincere. When he reached the gate of her house, he didn't knock right away. He stood beneath the shade of a tree, looking at the wooden path leading to the yard. The warm yellow light from the porch illuminated the figure of someone bent over, cutting vegetables. Even without seeing clearly, he knew it was Han. His breath caught for a moment. All the days apart, the longing, the many thoughts he carried, all had led to this moment. He tightened his grip on the basket and slowly walked toward the door. But he held on to a hint of secrecy, not speaking yet. His heart pounded hard in his chest. It was time to see her again. But he wanted it to happen gently, just as she had entered his life so quietly. Han was crouched under the porch, cutting vegetables. Her hands moved swiftly, but her expression showed a trace of fatigue. The recent changing weather had made her ankle ache again from time to time, but she had gotten used to it. She only wanted to finish quickly so she could go inside to little Tom. Just as she placed the vegetables into a basket, she turned her head, as if sensing something. She froze. In the fading afternoon light, beneath the coffee tree swaying softly in the wind, Tom stood there, quiet and simple, but his eyes shimmering like a smile. He carried a bamboo basket, his shoulders slightly damp with evening mist, proof that he had hurried to return. Their eyes met, only for a few seconds but long enough for time to stop. Han blinked, unsure if she was seeing correctly. Tan. Her voice was so soft that the wind nearly carried it away. Tan smiled gently and nodded. Yeah, I'm back. Such a simple sentence, yet it made her heart tighten. All the emptiness, the silent longing surged up like a breaking wave. She gripped the basket in her hands, flustered. Why didn't you tell me beforehand? Tan chuckled softly, his eyes warm. Because I wanted to surprise you. Then he stepped closer. Each step seemed to match a flutter of her heart. When only a few steps remained between them, he stopped. He opened the bamboo basket, taking out a bouquet of bright yellow daisies still wet with morning dew, and a bouquet of white lilies wrapped carefully in rustic brown paper. He held them out, his voice low and sincere. For you. For the upcoming holiday. Han's eyes widened, as if she could hardly believe it. F for me. Yes, he nodded. I want you to have a beautiful day. The wind blew lightly, lifting strands of her hair. She gazed at the flowers, fresh, lovely, filled with feeling. Her hands trembled slightly as she received them. Thank you so much. Tan looked at her, his gaze gentler than ever. There's more. He took out a small, simple box from a cloth bag. I thought this might suit you. When Han opened it, she found a bracelet made of dark brown coffee beans, gleaming softly in the sunset. She stared at it, feeling as if she could smell the sun and wind of the hills on each bead. It's beautiful, she whispered, her voice tight. Tan lowered his head and smiled faintly. It's my grandmother's keepsake. She wanted you to have it. Han looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mix of wonder and emotion. For some reason, her nose stung. She whispered, I don't know what to say. Tan met her gaze, his voice soft yet steady. Just accepting it is enough. Silence settled between them. The sunset coated the wooden porch in gold, softening every line of her face, making her look fragile and warm. Tan looked at her, something long hidden flickering in his eyes. He drew a deep breath as if gathering all his courage. Actually, his voice was quiet but clear. While I was away, I thought of you every day. Han froze. Her fingers tightened around the ribbon of the bouquet. He continued, eyes never leaving her. I kept thinking I'd only be gone a few days, but Grandma got worse and I couldn't leave. Some nights when I woke up, I'd remember seeing you bent over the garden, or hearing you laugh when little Tom wanted to follow me to the stream. Those images just stayed with me. Simple words, yet filled with a longing he could no longer hide. Han lowered her gaze, her heart softening. Part of her had suspected, but hearing him say it made her emotions swell. Tan looked at the bracelet in her hand and smiled gently. I brought it because I wanted to give it to you myself. Not because of the holiday, but because... He hesitated, as if waiting for her permission. Han slowly looked up, meeting his warm, honest eyes. Because I want you to know, there is someone who always wishes for your safety. His voice grew hoarse, as though coming from deep within. Han pressed her lips together, her nose stinging. Why are you so good to me? Her question was soft, but it carried the doubts of someone who had been hurt. Tan didn't answer immediately. He looked up at the porch roof where daylight was fading. I don't think too much about it. It's just, when you miss someone but can't do anything for them, your heart just doesn't rest. He smiled faintly without embellishment. For me, you're that person. Han's expression trembled. Not from the cold, but because her heart had just been stirred by his words. At that moment, Tan took out a small piece of paper from the bamboo basket. The paper was old, edges slightly creased, as if he had held it many times. He handed it to her. I wrote a few things. I wanted to tell you in person, but I was afraid I wouldn't be able to say it all, so I wrote them down. Han unfolded the note. Simple words appeared. Thank you for letting me be a part of your life. Thank you for giving me someone to miss. If one day you need someone to stand by you, I hope I can be that person. By the time she finished reading, her eyes were already wet. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the paper, as if embracing the simplest, yet most sincere feelings. She lifted her head to look at him. He didn't step closer, He only stood there waiting for her reply, no matter how small. The breeze passed by, carrying the scent of ripe coffee cherries from the hills, along with the plain but heartfelt confession of a man who loved her deeply. Han was still a little flustered with the note in her hand when Tan spoke softly, his voice warm and low. "Today, if you're free, I'd like to take you to dinner." Han blinked, a little surprised. Dinner?" Tan nodded, his gaze serious yet gentle. "Yes. There's a new restaurant downtown. I heard they make a lot of good dishes. I want you to try a few things you might never have had before." Han lowered her eyes. Her life had always been simple, circling around the kitchen, the market, the fields, and humble meals. Since becoming a single mother, she'd hardly ever thought about setting foot in a fancy restaurant or trying unfamiliar food. The thought made her heart flutter with nervous excitement. "But what about little Tom?" she murmured. Tan smiled. "I've thought of that. Sister Min nearby is free tonight. If you agree, she can watch him. It won't be long, just one evening." Hearing his gentle, considerate tone, Han's heart softened. It felt like Tan had prepared everything carefully, just to give her a complete evening. "I just want—" He hesitated, then spoke slowly. "You to be happy, to rest, and to be treated like a woman who is precious." Han looked up. There was no pity in his eyes, only sincerity and respect. That warmed her more than any gift could. A brief silence passed. Then Han smiled, shy, but enough to make the evening light seem softer. "Then, I'll go." Tana's smile brightened, quiet but heartfelt. "Then go change. I'll wait." Han nodded, hugging the bouquet and the bracelet box to her chest as she stepped inside. A feeling both strange and familiar rose within her. Nervous, like a girl on her very first date. Standing on the porch, Tan tightened his hand around the bamboo basket handle and watched her silhouette. His heart trembled lightly, just as it had the first time he entered her home. The image of Han earlier, eyes glistening, bracelet in hand, a hesitant smile, made him believe today's decision was absolutely right. A moment later, Han came out. She had changed into a simple cream-colored dress, her hair loosely tied at the nape of her neck. No makeup, no elaborate jewelry. Yet the gentle look in her eyes and that shy smile left Tan briefly speechless. "You look beautiful," he blurted. Han blushed, lowered her head, and smiled with pressed lips. Her heart pounded, like it had been ages since she'd heard such an honest compliment. Tan picked up a light coat and carefully draped it over her shoulders. "It's late, the wind's a bit chilly." Han answered softly, "Thank you." They walked out the gate as the last of the sunset faded. The road down into town sparkled with lights, a road that perhaps would open something new for them both. Tonight, Han would step into another world, one with good food, laughter, and a man who carried her in his heart. The nighttime road into town shimmered. Golden streetlights cast long shadows, clearly outlining the figures of two people walking side by side, neither too close nor far apart. Tan took the outer side of the path, shielding Han from the sparse passing traffic. From time to time, he glanced over to see her lowering her gaze, fingers lightly touching the coffee bean bracelet box as if lost in thought. "Are you cold?" Tan asked softly. "No, I'm fine." Even so, he adjusted the coat on her shoulders. The gesture was so natural, as if he'd done it 100 times. When they reached the restaurant, Han was a little taken aback. The place was small but cozy, light wooden walls, strings of warm yellow lights, and a few potted plants that made it feel close and inviting. Not extravagant but refined, like a world that wrapped you in comfort. Tan pushed the door open with a gentle smile. "Let's go in." Han stepped inside, wide-eyed like a child facing something new. The air smelled of butter and herbs, and soft piano music floated through, easing her heart. A server led them to a window table. Outside, the city lights reflected on the glass, making the scene both sparkling and serene. Tan pulled out her chair. She sat, a little awkward but warm inside. "I'll order a few dishes, just try them," he said, confident yet gentle. Han nodded. Soon the food arrived. Each plate was beautifully presented, so different from the simple meals she usually shared with her child. "This is mango salad with shrimp, light and easy to eat." Tan spooned a little onto the small plate before her. She tasted it carefully. The sweet and tart flavors mingled, The shrimp was fresh, just cooked through. A hint of mint made it bright and refreshing. Han's eyes widened. A soft laugh escaped. It's delicious. Hearing the delight in her voice, Tan smiled warmly. I guessed you'd like it. Next came a creamy pumpkin soup, then seared beef with red wine sauce. Each dish was flavorful, unfamiliar yet approachable, leading Han from surprise to delight. Tan, Han whispered, setting her spoon down. Yes. Thank you for this dinner. Leaning an elbow on the table, he looked at her gently. Thank you for agreeing to come with me. Seeing his gaze, Han felt herself relax. No longer as shy as at first, she began to talk more. About little Tom, the coffee gardens, the windy days in the village, and how she had once wished to try a different kind of meal but never had the chance. Tom listened with care. He nodded, smiled, and asked now and then, letting the conversation flow naturally. When their fruit drinks arrived, Tom said softly, Actually, I've always wanted you to enjoy better things. They don't have to be extravagant. As long as you feel happy. Han looked at the ruby glow of the drink under the table lamp. Inside, something shifted. The feeling of being cherished softened old wounds. It's been a long time since I felt this light, she said, quiet but sincere. Tan smiled. Then tonight was worth it. For a moment they were silent, not for lack of words but because the piece felt just right. The piano drifted through the air. Outside, the city glittered. Inside, at a small table, there were only two people. And a very gentle evening. Their eyes met, this time without awkwardness. Only a warmth that reached the heart.
Hello mọi người, rất vui được gặp lại mọi người trong video của mình. Video hôm nay của mình kể về câu chuyện của người mẹ đơn thân Diệu Hân. Sau những ngày xa cách thì hôm nay Thành đã quay trở về để gặp Hân. Và sau những ngày xa cách ấy đã khiến tình cảm của Thành và Hân nhận rõ hơn về đối phương. Thành chuẩn bị cho Hân một món quà và chuẩn bị cho Hân những điều tốt đẹp nhất mà anh có thể dành cho Hân, với hy vọng rằng Hân sẽ mở lòng và đón nhận tình cảm ấy của anh. Liệu rằng hai người sẽ đi về đâu và tình cảm ấy sẽ phát triển như thế nào? Mọi người cùng đón xem ở video tiếp theo nha. Ở video tiếp theo thì mình sẽ kể chi tiết hơn về tình cảm về Thành và Hân để mọi người cùng đón xem. Hy vọng rằng sẽ được mọi người ủng hộ và hẹn gặp lại mọi người ở trong video tiếp theo nha.